All right, let's get into it. This week wasn't a busy week. This was a pattern exposing itself. SaaS losing altitude, Apple blinking, AI face planning, Google making a power grab, Adobe buying life support, the labor market quietly rebooting itself in the background. All separate headlines, but if you're skimming one storyline, you're paying attention to the past 20 years of tech are ending. The next 20 are showing their teeth. Let's start where everyone's too polite to look. Look, SaaS isn't slowing, it's getting dismantled in real time. We've all been tiptoeing around this for months, but the Adventis chart ripped the Band-Aid clean off. 36% growth down to 12% growth, heading toward 11. That's not a cycle. That's the business model aging out. SaaS, it's turning into utilities. It's important, it's stable, it's predictable, and well, it's probably capped. Electricity, water, and now CRM. The real action, it's somewhere else now. And the operators inside companies can really feel it. Here's exactly what they're seeing, and none of this is theory. First, SaaS sold workflows. AI sells outcomes. A SaaS platform gives you a to-do list. An agent actually finishes the damn to-do list. Once the labor moves inside the app stops being the product. The labor then becomes the product. Number two, CFOs, they're done buying all these seats. They're not approving more and more licenses. They're approving fewer humans. That fits the math. SaaS, it doesn't. Number three, feature parity. It's killing categories. CRM's the same. Every CX tool's the same. Every marketing automation tool. It's just a UI with a really long setup. AI is exposing how thin the moats always were. Number four, enterprises hit peak SaaS years ago. Now they're consolidating. They're gutting their stacks by 20 to 40% and not really replacing anything. Number five, AI startups. They're growing so fast. They're growing at speed SaaS can't physically match. 9-figure revenue in months, not years. That resets investor expectations almost, frankly, overnight. Number six, value moved down the stack, compute and data and agents. It's not UI layers. This is a transfer of value, not really a slowdown. SaaS becomes an economic bond. AI becomes the growth stock. Now founders have to choose, build on SaaS and get stable multiples, or build agents that replace the work SaaS was built to monetize. One is fairly safe, one scales. Pick the life you want. Now, while SaaS is losing altitude, the giants who define the last era, they're running into their own ceiling. Apple's real crisis isn't Tim Cook retiring. I think it's Apple actually missing the point. Now, everyone describes Cook's eventual succession as a smooth baton pass. Zero urgency, zero panic. But Bloomberg's reporting paints a slightly different picture. People inside Apple, they say senior leaders, say there's a growing fear Apple is on a Nokia trajectory. Not because the products suck, because the paradigm shifted, and Apple really didn't. We've moved from devices to agents and apps to autonomous systems, tapping to delegating, automation to digital later. And Apple spent the last decade really perfecting what? Like aluminum and supply chains, instead of investing in memory and autonomy, coordination. Look, the core of agentic systems. Yes, Siri, but Siri was never built to be a digital worker. Siri was barely built to be a calculator with some fun jokes built in. The next CEO's scorecard, it's got to be simple. Can Apple architect the OS that runs the AI workforce? Identity, state, memory, task, switching, delegation, orchestration. These aren't features that the backbone of how humans and machines collaborate. Tim Cook, yes, he did awesome. He perfected the last era. His successor, it's going to have to define the next one. And we don't know yet if Apple has the DNA for that pivot. But even the companies leading hard into AI hit a different speed bump this week. When AI goes down, the whole internet goes vertigo. if you didn't hear, Cloudflare went down. And half the internet went with it. X, it was GPT, Claude, Shopify, Uber, Canva, even League of Legends got dragged into the chaos. That wasn't a model problem. That wasn't a vendor problem. That was like the entire ecosystem, depending on the same brittle skeleton. Everyone talks about AGI like it's weeks away. Look, this week showed the opposite. The whole stack is made of, well, glass. AI is a dependency chain, CDN to DNS to API model. One bad spike and your digital brain, well, it falls over. Nils falls over in the hallway. If your business is betting on agents, we probably all need to ask ourselves or ask someone some of these uncomfortable questions. What happens when your AI vendor goes dark? Do you have a multi-provider architecture? Is there a fallback, or does your window or workflow just die? Can your system degrade gracefully instead of failing loudly? I don't think this was Skynet knocking on the door. It was just a reminder that the AI future, it's incredibly powerful, but at the moment, maybe structurally fragile. And while the stack wobbles, one company is quietly building the rails everyone else is going to need. Google. It's not just shipping models, it's building actually that operating system for digital labor. Now, everyone framed Gemini 3 like it was another model upgrade, benchmarks and leaderboards and Twitter charts, but I don't know if any of that mattered. What really mattered was the distribution and like the embeddedness. Google didn't release just a smarter bot. They plugged agentic capabilities into things like search and workspace and Android Vertex and this anti-gravity and IDE designed around agents, not humans. This is Google turning the internet into an OS for digital workers. Meanwhile, Microsoft is trying to do the same thing with Office and Windows, and OpenAI is trying to do it from a browser tab. I think the rest of the market is still obsessing over which model scores like 3% higher on MMLU. The model race, it feels like it's slowing a little bit. The agent platform race is heating up more and more. And here's the thing I think people are starting to talk about. Agents don't use your SaaS UI. They don't click, they don't drag and drop, they don't admire your onboarding flow. They hit the APIs, they do the work, and they frankly move on. Google sees the future clearly. They're building the home for the digital workforce, but not every incumbent is really that far ahead. Some are scrabbling to survive this big transition. One of them is maybe Adobe. If you didn't hear, they bought SEMrush. But with it, they bought time. Adobe dropped $1.9 billion on SEMrush. I don't think it was an expansion play. It's self-preservation. Adobe's stock is down nearly 30% this year. That's the market screaming at them, your moat, it's breaking. For 20 years, Adobe owned creativity. Then, like a lot, generative AI bulldozed that almost overnight. The new moat is not a tool. It's the data behind the tool. SEMrush gives Adobe what they desperately lacked: search intent, behavioral signals, long-tail performance data, the raw fuel agents use to generate creative work that actually performs. Look, this isn't just about SEO. It's about not becoming a pretty UI on top of someone else's intelligence. We're watching the collapse of some of those best of breed point solutions. Tools, yeah, they become features. Features, they become agents. And then agents collapse entire categories. Adobe's trying to make sure it doesn't become collateral damage. And if you think this shift is only happening in software, I think you're missing the bigger picture. The labor market, if you didn't see this week, it isn't cooling. I think it's more rebooting. The headlines, if you didn't see, said the U.S. added like 119,000 jobs in September. Everyone called it a mixed report. But no, I think it's more like a rewiring. Almost all the job growth came down to three sectors: healthcare, social assistance, and then it was leisure and hospitality. Now, everywhere else, down about 150,000 jobs. This year, management, admin, information work, temp agencies. These are digital, repetitive, predictable roles. the exact roles API replaces first. Companies aren't necessarily announcing these layoffs. They're freezing hiring, cutting middle layers, and quietly pushing the work into software. Small companies are hiring, they say, X faster than large enterprises. Why? Because they don't treat headcount like labor. They treat it like orchestration. One person manages multiple digital workers, and the BLS, I don't know, it still feels like it's measuring jobs like it's 95, humans only. No software, no agents, no blended roles. It's interesting. It's like we're living through the first labor market where work can scale without adding people. The data just truthfully hasn't caught up. I don't know. Zoom out for a second. Look, all of these stories this week, they always connect a little bit. SaaS growth collapsing, Apple hitting the edge of its playbook, AI showing how brittle the stack really is, Google building the operating system for digital labor, Adobe scrambling to stay relevant, the labor market shifting work from humans to this new type of software. It might feel like chaos. I don't think it is chaos. It's more of a pattern, maybe even a coordinated pattern. The last era ran on seats and screens and workflows. The next era will run on agents and data and autonomy. And the companies that are going to keep winning or will start to win and be successful are probably not going to be the ones with this beautiful AI. It'll be the ones that build the environment where digital workers can operate. All right, that's the rant. See you next week. Have a good one.